Ladies and gentlemen, the Teachers Guild of New South Wales would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we gather today and pay our respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this event. We honour the elders both past and present and recognise the enduring cultures and connections of the Aboriginal peoples to the lands and waters throughout Australia. My name is Mr. Patrick Nam, Vice President of the Teachers Guild of New South Wales, and I express my gratitude to each of you for joining us for our Guild Education series. Today's discussion centres around the topic of ongoing mentoring suggestions for coaching and development. It is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panel who will provide valuable insights on this subject. Our distinguished panellists are Ms. Amy Ayres, Dean of Teaching and Learning at St. Augustine's College, Mr. Rick Stevens, Life Member of the Teachers Guild of New South Wales, and unfortunately who is not able to join us tonight also was Dr. Lauren Nussen, School of International Studies and Education, Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, University of Technology, Sydney, and a Guild member of the Teachers Guild of New South Wales. We are also grateful to Mr. Len Nixon, Counsellor for Educators Network of the Teachers Guild of New South Wales and Commercial Studies teacher at Barker College, who will be moderating this event. I extend my thanks to our panellists for their presence here today. Before we proceed, I'd like to address some housekeeping matters. Please feel free to share your experiences, thoughts and questions in the chat function. For the questions directed to the panel, kindly use the Q&A box in the Zoom control panel. I kindly request that you keep your questions concise and relevant to the topic at hand. Our moderator will guide the discussion and pose questions to the panel during our session. Once again, I express my appreciation to Amy, Rick, and also Len for joining us today. Over to you, Len.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for coming and joining us today. Just a quick recap. Early on in March this year, the Guild put together a 2-hour seminar related to coaching and mentoring, and what was discussed on that day was issues, for example, like the various models that have been used in terms of coaching and or mentoring. And we were also looking at a number of issues in relation to dispositions and skills that would be required to be an effective coach. Certainly the issues are really important for us, and given the background of, particularly in terms of schools at present who are struggling hard to retain staff, and a lot of the reasons because of the retention of staff is somewhat based around a lack of support that a lot of teachers don't get in various schools, where coaching and mentoring is not formalised in any way, which is entirely unfortunate. But we're looking at looking forward and saying that the Guild can provide, we think, a means by which we can actually sponsor, help, suggest ways in which we can go forward in that case there. There's a number of questions that have been posed, and I'll deal with those in a second, but I might ask Rick what his thoughts were in terms of the recap, and then Amy, if that's all right. So Rick, over to you.
So Len, you just want me to give some ideas about recapping what we talked about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tackle it from my perspective, and that I said at the meeting. Mentoring was really, really important for me as a pre-service teacher, and it was what set the foundations for me to go on and set me up with great skills. I think it's one of the most important things we can do for all our teachers, particularly the early career teachers. We're losing too many. And Len, I agree with you completely. We need to formalise this somehow in schools so that everyone is given a chance to be mentored, particularly early career teachers.
Thank you. Amy?
Thanks, Len. Hi, everybody. So I think in reflection of our last session, we did talk a lot about coaching and mentoring. And I suppose the biggest takeaway I could see for people was, what does coaching actually look like? What does a coaching conversation look like? What does it consist of? Theoretically, and then also practically. And on the back of that, what does that practicality look like in a school context? Because we talk about coaching and mentoring in organizations, but in a school context, where does that fit for us as educators and as teachers in schools? So what can it look like from a conversation with a colleague within our faculties to a conversation with a colleague outside of our faculty, and helping them to understand more or unpack about their practice, the pedagogical practice. But then also who can be a coach, and actually can it be anybody, and how could it be better? So really starting to think about the mechanics behind coaching within the organisation that you exist. How do you use the tools that are already available? And then how do you amplify that voice within the organisation? So a lot has come out of that first session, Len, and I think there's still a lot more to dig into. But in terms of that coaching frame, I think there's still there's a lot to come. There's a lot of gold. Yeah,
I think one of the points about the coaching model itself, particularly related to schools, and I think there's a generalised version that people have used in terms of the growth model, and that serves I think it serves a purpose, but I think also but looking at instructional coaching itself, one of the issues that I see as a coach is that early career teachers sometimes come out and they get caught out with a range of issues that relates to, for example, just the day-to-day operations, and also having a sounding board for those people. Also too, I think it's really important for us is that we look at, I think, an instructional coaching model itself. I think one of the big issues for us is actually to break down the teaching into bite-sized aspects, and then focus on a particular aspect of coaching, particular aspect of teaching, and then coaching your way through it. I think, unfortunately, there are lots of people that have just gone in and gone, oh, well, I'll just have a conversation with these people, and it's been way too general. And what has happened is that people walk out, they may feel good. It's like a motivational speech. You feel good after 5 minutes, and after 10 minutes, you've forgotten it. But for me, I think one of the really big issues is about what is actually happening in the classroom from a pedagogical point of view, looking at all aspects of it, but meticulously, but systematically going through bit by bit. I think it's really important that we do that. We're working through the Step Lab process, which is offered by Josh Goodrich, I should say, and is operating with Ollie Lovell down in Victoria, and our school has just signed up, and it costs, I think the license is about $250 per person or whatever it might be, but that's what we wanted to do. We thought, we've tried growth coaching for a while, and that's not to say that it didn't work, because it did work, but this is much more particular with the focus that we've got at present about trying to retain teachers. And one of the big issues is about the teachers' pedagogy, and where unfortunately they've not got those sorts of skills and knowledge to actually create a lesson that is engaging, relevant, and promotes understanding. I think they're the key things there.
Len, can I pick up on Amy's question?
Yeah.
She posed the question, who should be mentoring and coaching? And I think that's a really important one. Too often in my role as a tertiary supervisor, I see teachers who are not good fits with students. And I think we need to dig really deeply into the dispositions that you require. You mentioned that, Len, the dispositions required for someone to be a mentor or a coach.
Yeah.
How that might be implemented in schools, rather than just assigning someone for the sake of it.
For meeting the needs. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think there's an issue here that not everyone's a coach. And I think if you're going to run this business, if you're going to run a coaching structure in an organisation such as a school, then it has to be a partnership, and that partnership has to have there are I think, prerequisites for those sorts of people and those dispositions. I think one of the really big issues is about, in terms of skills, I think one of the big ones is listening. I mean, one of the really big issues is about listening to people. The other one is questioning, and the other one, and teachers are notorious for this, and is about, I'm going to give you a solution. I'm going to give you a solution, and I tell you that this worked really well for me, but it may not work very well for them. And for example, you might say to someone, look, I think thinking skills might be a really good thing to use in the classroom. And the person goes, firstly, I don't know what thinking skills are. And secondly, the other problem is, when do you use them? So why are you using it? And that's the big question. Why are you using it? How are you using it? And was it effective? And I think that's one of the really big things that coaches need to have. Not only I guess, curriculum knowledge, but they also have, you know, they need the facts and figures of whether they be a maths teacher, an economics teacher, a science teacher, an English teacher. They need to be an expert in their area and having that knowledge, because in terms of credibility, and that's another thing in terms of being successful as a coach, is that people who you are, the coachee, has to be credible. You know, the coach has to be credible in all those areas. There are many people who are fantastic in terms of their knowledge, but don't have that interpersonal skills that you require.
And I think that probably answers the question that popped up on the chat: which coaching skill is most challenging for people to develop?
Oh, yeah. I think everyone, the people that I've coached over the years, and I've fallen into the trap of not listening, of not being actually listening in the moment. I mean, I'm listening, but I'm not listening. You know, I've got other things going by, you know, the birds flying past the window and I see that, but I'm actually talking to you. And I think that's one of the really big issues for me, is about listening to people in the moment. And also to the other one that I think is really important, as an ability to summarize the conversation in a way that you can, in a sense, go, well, this is what I hear you're saying. Is that a true and accurate reflection of what you've said? Not what you think it is and embellishing it, but it's an ability to summarize what your coachee has said. I think it's really important. Hopefully, what do you think about that, Amy? Do you think that's the right thing?
Yeah, look, I think it's a two-way street, isn't it? And learning the road rules of the street is really important. So the skills have to come, and you learn them, don't you? You learn the coaching skills by being the coach or the coachee. Either way, you learn, well, that conversation didn't go very well. They weren't really listening to me. I know that they weren't listening to me because they were looking at their phone, or their laptop was open, or they didn't have full focus. And so as a coachee, you'd probably walk away thinking, well, if I'm ever going to be a coach, it's something that I'm going to definitely think about doing. Other people may not even identify that, walk away thinking, well, that was useless, but not having an idea of how to develop. So I think actively listening as the coach is vital, because the safety, or the psychological safety that's created in that coaching relationship, is the key to stepping forward. If someone isn't actively listening, then the person being coached is not going to share. They don't feel psychologically safe.
Yeah, I think feeling safe in the space of mentoring for both people is really, really important. And there was a question about maximising the ability to do this when there are no hours available. I'm going to suggest that sometimes the safe space might be out of the normal school hours, somewhere else off campus. You know, where you both feel safe, and you feel freer to raise the questions and the problems and the issues.
Yeah, I think also too, one of the aspects of, and I've done this, is actually telephone coaching.
Yes.
I mean, this business, I don't have enough time. I understand that. We're schools are busy places, but I think one of the other things that you can do is use You know, you could use a Zoom call, you know, or you could do Microsoft Teams. In a sense, there's no excuse. And the other problem that lots of people think when they have a coaching, you have to have a 15-minute or 20-minute or half hour or hour. It doesn't happen to be that.
5 minutes.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, agreed. And I think that's the sort of thing. But I think also too, in engendering a coaching program, I think that there's a number of issues here, and I think it's about a partnership. And I think one of the really big issues, and I think one of the questions that we hear is, and I'll go through these in terms of what I see is having a conversation, and I've raised it before, issues like, for example, there's an issue about equality. There are too many coaches who come in that I've seen, particularly possibly inexperienced coaches, have gone in and they're going to tell you everything. And the young early career teacher sits there going, well, wait a minute, where's the issue about equality? I thought it was we're on an equal playing field. There are times when you need to step out. There are times when you turn around and you go, you know, maybe your pedagogy is not great, that your content knowledge is not terrific, and just your general demeanour and behaviour in the classroom is not flash. Of course, you'd have to say something like that, but I think there's an issue about equality. I think also there's an issue about choice. You know, there's an element about choosing what you do, when you do it, how you do it. And I think that's a really important aspect. And I think, I guess there's a reciprocity issue. I mean, and that ties itself in with equality. There's, you know, there's a reciprocal arrangement between this. And I think that's really important in terms of the conversation. The biggest issue for me is trust. The biggest issue for me is that do they absolutely trust me in terms of what I'm actually saying? And that trust comes from issues like knowledge. You know, they believe what you're saying about knowledge is important. And also too, drawing on the experience that you have and what it's taught you and sort of synthesizing that and bringing it to the conversation. Thoughts about that, people?
Yeah, I have thoughts about that. I think that collaborative kind of factor is really powerful. So as a coach, and I would have coaching conversations, I would then be coached by my coach and how did I manage this? And I know, Len, you've done this for colleagues before, go in and watch a coaching conversation and then give feedback or coach the coach on how it went and the strategies that they employed at different points in time, because in a coaching conversation, you don't have a set of questions where you ask this question, you get this answer, you ask this question, you get that answer. You know, it's the waterfall effect where a statement might be made and another question needs to be followed up with. And so it really is an intuitive part of that coaching process. So the collaboration is really key, and thinking about when we're implementing maybe a coaching program into a school, we need to think about the systemic support. And I don't mean policy, I mean the relationships among leadership or external to, so that you can have that collaboration in order to be the most effective coach, the feedback from maybe a master coach to build your skills. So collaboration, really important. Feedback on our coaching, really important.
And another C, collaboration and commitment.
Yes.
If you're going to be, so that goes back to the comment about, you know, where do you get time? And Lena's expressed, well, you know, that shouldn't be the major issue. Commitment is really important if you're going to be a mentor or coach, and you're going to have to realise that this will involve extra time, and you may not just be given the time by the school.
No, and I think there's a lot of schools that don't do that. I think one of the really big issues about coaching from a strategic point of view is that the people at the head of the school, the executive, believe that coaching is valuable. You know, that's a huge issue. That's you know, that should be a given in many ways. And when there are, and there have been, you know, times here, for example, where, you know, you really are struggling as a coach and you just need some sort of affirmation that you're heading in the right direction as a coach. You know, I think that's a really important thing. Otherwise, what happens is that you're sort of almost like an island. you're sitting out there going, and there's, you know, there's a sea of sharks running around looking at you going, see, I told you it wasn't that good. And you go, yeah, right, thanks very much for that. But it's true. I mean, you really do need that. And I think one of the other things at night, Jim Knight comes out, and I think is a really important thing, is about videoing the conversations and talking about that. And there are lots of people, I know there are issues about privacy, I understand that. But I mean, firstly, I think you go video in a couple of ways. One, you can video the class, right? But you do it from the back. So you don't necessarily are looking at the faces of the students, but you're looking at the movement and what that person's doing. Then you have a concrete conversation. And one of the things that I found is really useful then is to sit down with it and meticulously go through it with the coachee, thinking that what were you trying to do here? Now, if it wasn't video, then you'd be saying, well, at 10 minutes into the lesson, you did this, and they go, well, I don't think I did that at all. But there you've got documentary, in a sense, documentary proof saying, look, this is what you might have done. I don't understand what you were trying to do here. And I think what you're trying to do in many ways is looking at the question of, I think in coaching, is why are you doing this?
Yes.
You know, what's the activity? What can you just tell me what you were trying to do? What were the expected outcomes of the lesson, for example? And then in a coaching conversation, you can break it down and you go forward, you know, and then video that conversation that you have, not just with the class. So you've got two things. So the video is looking at the class, and then the video is looking at you in terms of the coaching conversation. And I think that's one of the really, really effective ways to be have a good coaching program system at a school. But as usual, sorry, go.
Perhaps that comes back to also looking at the teaching standards and trying to comment on that, because that's really important.
Oh, yeah.
We always tie it back. There was a question about normalising coaching across the education domain, and Denise has made the comment, it comes back to the belief the executives hold regarding coaching. And I think the answer to how do you normalise is you've got to get the heads of schools on side. That's where it all starts. And we all know that if anything's successful in the school, it's going to come from the top. And I think there's a lot of work to be done there with convincing executives, particularly heads of schools, that this is a really important issue and they really need to think, how are we going to do this?
Well, I think one of the problems is that people see education as a commodity, but it's a process. And coaching is a process. It's not a commodity. It's not, you know, add water, stir, and hello, you're going to be a better teacher. It doesn't work like that. It has to be a process. Now, the other problem, of course, with schools in many instances is, and I'm lucky where I am, is that I'm not entirely I'm not coaching all the time. I'm actually teaching. And I think, but in some ways, that also gives you credibility. It also gives you credibility that you're actually in the classroom, you're actually, you know, pushing back those frontiers of ignorance. And what you're trying to do, right, is then the coach says, or the coachee says, well, how would you know? You don't, you know, you're not in the classroom. You go, wait a minute, yes, I am. Yes, I am. And I'm doing those sorts of things on a daily basis. The nice thing about what you can do then is to say, you come and watch me teach.
Yes.
Come and watch me teach. Now, lots of people, I mean, I know that we're getting to a point, and hopefully in the next 10 or 20 years, and hopefully I'm still alive, that people can actually go into classrooms, and it's just a normal pastime, as opposed to where it used to be, you know, the doors were locked, put out the cat, and I'll see you at the end of the lesson. We need more of that. We need more situations where people go, yes, I want to go in and see Rick teach. I want to go and see what Amy does. I want to go and see what Len does. Yes. Now, we may not be the world's greatest teachers, right? But it's a base point to look at what you can do. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Glenn, I love that. And I think one of the joyful parts of my role is facilitating the learning walks that happen in the school. So teachers looking at the classrooms, noticing what's happening in the lessons and creating a culture that is psychologically safe. So we're at the point now where a teacher could work into another teacher's classroom and just watch for a little while, have a conversation with the teacher at the end. And I often talk to teachers now and say, hey, how's it going? And they share something. Yesterday, we did a personal learning walk with one staff member, and we went into, I said, what are you after? What are we looking at? What are we looking for? And she said, I really want to see a junior class with really strong behavior management. And so we targeted. I said, okay, let's come and have a look at this class in this faculty and see how they run it. And afterwards, oh my gosh, she did this, she did this, she did this. And all of a sudden, her teacher toolkit of behavior management strategies had been boosted. And it only took 15 minutes of observing another staff member doing it in a particularly good or strong way. And so being in an environment or a culture that allows that takes time to build as well. So a couple of barriers that we've seen built through COVID has been, we don't have that luxury of popping in and out of classrooms. We didn't have that for a time. And so it is a little bit new to feel, safe with another teacher coming in. They're not coming in to critique, they're coming in to learn. And so the development of that psychologically safe culture will take time and commitment, like Rick has just said, commitment to spend the time just feeling what it's like when people are coming in and out, being optimistic and positive, and then sharing with each other the gold of what they're learning in those environments. So yeah, imagine a world where we could just pop in and out of classrooms. How incredible. And learn as educators, how are we going to boost up our classroom? What am I looking for? Oh, okay, great. I'm going to learn there.
Amy, I encourage my pre-service teachers to ask the school, can they observe lessons outside the stage where they've been placed? Can they observe some specialist lessons? And most schools are prepared to do that. Regrettably, some a little reluctant. But I think that's really important for pre-service teachers in mentoring. See as wide an experience as you can of teaching styles across stages. And if there are specialists in the school, yes, let them see that too.
Yeah, so that general to broad, yeah.
I think that's a terrific thing. I think also there's another side to it. I think also too that going into the classrooms, the people, they're not coming in for example, you've got a maths person and another maths person, and the other, the coachee is going in to see someone teach, and there's to stop this competitiveness about, I'm not going to let anyone into the classroom because they might take something that I'm actually doing. Which is really true. Which is really true, I mean, oh my God. And the other thing, and I think that's a really important thing. I think what Amy said is right about the culture of the place. It's this set of beliefs that you want, that we're one among equals. We're one among equals. And what we want to do is, at the end of the day, it's about generating an outcome for the students that they are in a better place than they were when they first came to the school in that year. That's that not the overall overarching aspect of what teaching is about. You are a catalyst, if you like, to, on the journey for 21 or 51 or 100 kids in the classroom, and they need, and you want to take them on a journey. And that journey is to fill A, knowledge, B, skills, C, capabilities. That's what your job is. Now, one of the things, it's ironic, isn't it, that you get sometimes, and hopefully not all the time, where teachers come in and go, oh my God, I haven't got any resources. They go to the photocopy and go, well, that looks pretty cool. I'll take that, right? And then they walk into the class and go, well, I'm a bit of a star, aren't I, really? And you go, wait a minute, you've taken someone's resources, but you don't acknowledge what's happening in the classroom. I don't get that.
Yeah.
I don't get that, and that's a really important thing in terms of what you want to do is create an environment where people actually feel safe. And we're sort of circling back on that. And again, it's the trust aspect. It's huge. It's massively important to generate that. But that takes time.
Yes.
That takes time. A couple of things about some of the questions that were raised that I've got here is that, excuse me, sorry, what research underpins your process actions of program? All right. So, you know, I know there might be people out there who are professional coaches or whatever, and it'd be interesting to hear what they might say on the chat line. But in terms of research that underpins it, I mean, people like growth coaching, there's an extensive amount of research that's been done in relation to that. Secondly, also Jim Knight's work, and there's been lots of research that he's done through the University of Kansas, and also too with the STEP Lab with Josh Goodridge down in Melbourne, that there has been work that's been done that's trying to confirm what coaching is, and is it effective? And I mean, I think we're in our infancy still. I think we're growing, but we're not growing as fast. And I think there's a PhD, you know, there's a PhD work to be done in that area there. So I think that's one of the and it says what skill is the most challenging for people to develop. So I think we probably answered that in a sense. Skill, yeah.
Len, I might just add a little bit too. I know that all of the work in coaching and mentoring, it has really strong foundations, and I think it's grown from other areas as well. So another person, if anyone would like to look up, Louise Stoll, did a lot of great work with professional learning communities in schools, and that is almost where the PLC kind of idea came from. And I think a lot of that foundation is really helpful in the school context, which allows us to create a landscape where coaching can then come in. So Louise Stoll is probably another great reference or bit of work to look at.
Denise Archie has commented, the first step is to recognise what is the intention of the plan. And I think that goes back to Amy's comment earlier, to collaborate more, to just be better collaborators in your place of learning, with the intention that we want to do things better. We always want to be better teachers, don't we?
Yeah. And I think that's a social thing, you know. It's a professional and it's a social thing where people are actually collaborating together to become better teachers and to become better practitioners, to give better outcomes for the students.
Yeah, we want to maximise the learning and
correct.
You make a great environment for both teachers and students to learn and collaborate. So I think that's the main intention if you want to have a good mentoring coaching program.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can start small too. You know, I mean, we're talking about organizational kind of structures for coaching and mentoring and reflecting on that. But if a school or context doesn't have a structure set already, well, you can start small. And I think that's the beauty of these coaching and mentoring conversations. If you're in a faculty and you'd really like to start working on the coaching and mentoring that's taking place, you might have, hey, one year I had 5 new teachers arrive fresh out of uni. And so a lot of mentoring and coaching needed to happen within a short period of time. And so the other members of the faculty really did need to step up and do a little bit of research and work on how they were going to support them without overburdening themselves as well. So I think you can start small in your faculty and you can develop skills if there's not a larger context. Okay, so having that open door policy of sharing. So, you know, I'm doing a dissection today. Have you ever done that? No. Okay, come on down to the lab. We're going to do a practice and then you can come into my class and watch how I do it. Some of that mentoring needs to happen, and there are ways to go about it on that small scale too. So really powerful opportunities.
And I think, Amy, one of the really important things is to make sure that in any school, and as you said, you get new teachers arriving, that there's a very strong and intentional orientation for them. And they're not just dumped there. And I think that happens probably far too often where the teacher just plonks in and, well, get on with it. You need to make sure they're well oriented into the school and what it's about and all that goes with it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, and I think it's not just for early career teachers, but I also think that people who are jumping systems, they're going from, you know, maybe department to, you know, Catholic systemic to independent or whatever. There's a real need to make sure that induction program is done really well and it's supported. I mean, we have a situation here where I support. I mean, I've got 5 or 6 people that I'm dealing with who have come this year. And then I've got another group that I had last year I'm still seeing, and the previous year. So we've got a 3-year contract basically, and it's part of their contract that they'll be coached. So the school recognises that coaching is really an important thing. I think that the problem is, of course, is that I mean, I'll give you an example. One of the people I'm coaching at present only ever wants me to see year 8. Right. And I went, why year 8? And then I went to see year 8 and I said, I know why I'm here for year 8. And it was like, you know, it were difficult kids in terms of behavior, but there were a few things that, and we talked about why they were like that. Again, the question is, why are they operating like that when they go into other classes, they're not like that? Why is it that all of a sudden they hit you and I mean, it was an issue that needed to be addressed because there was some angst and people like, heads of house were getting upset because their parents were saying, oh, this person's not doing this or whatever it might be. And I went in there and that wasn't the case at all. It was just a few things that needed to be tweaked. It would have been fine. But I think Amy's point is a really good one. I think if the school in some ways and really smart heads of departments could look at coaching these people because and running a coaching mentoring situation, because you want to keep these people. I mean, they're just not out there at present. And we've just lost 2 or 3 people and they're going to other schools and for a variety of reasons, but it's just really important that does occur. And I think Amy's point is really a valid one. I like that. I think it's a great idea.
Here's another thing I was just thinking about. I think schools are getting better at developing mentoring programs for new teachers to the school. I think that's definitely improved in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about, what are the opportunities in a mentoring relationship that are different to a coaching relationship for new teachers, so early career teachers? And then also, what are the opportunities we have with teachers who are coming into teaching from another field in terms of that mentorship? So, Len, I know that you focus a lot on coaching, but with the mentoring hat on, the mentoring framework, from, I suppose, the bigger view, the opportunities for mentoring in schools is vast. If I were to walk into a new school tomorrow and implement something to do with mentoring, what would you suggest? What's the best way to go about it?
I think the best way to go about it is firstly is to have a conversation with the staff. Firstly, I think one of the really big issues is that a lot is unfortunately dropped on staff. This is another thing, and I think one of the big issues about you want a collaborative way to go forward. And for me, I think it's really important in terms of developing a relationship with the people that firstly come. And I think that's where you pick your good coaches or mentors, all right? And building that relationship with them. What we do is we meet them on the very first day. We spend 2 days with them, right? For when they come into the school. And we basically walk around and they're given the 3 or 4 that we've got. Usually, last year we had 24, right? So we walked around the school, we talked about this, we talked about that, and then I got to know them. I sort of had a a way in which the questions I was asked, and then and once I finished, they were having a break, and I just jot down a few things about them, and then I go, okay. And once you start saying, look, I know that you live X, Y, Z. I mean, what do you do on the weekend? Do you do this or do that, whatever? So you're building a relationship with these people, but it's on a but you see them regularly. That's the other thing that you need to do. You need to see them regularly. I'm coaching people outside my faculty, which is really great. That I can, and what you don't want, because the mentor will usually go, well, I wouldn't do it that way. I've taught economic issues like this, and I'm not really impressed with the way you do it. And you go, well, that's not going to work. So what it is that I'm looking at really their pedagogy, but also too, and I'm dealing with an English teacher present, and who's terrific. And I said to him, you know what, I've learned something here today. I've actually learned something here today. But the way you did it is just, and I said, well, if I had my daughters, I'd let you teach my daughters. And they went, yeah, right, okay. Well, what?
There's a bit of safety. There you go.
So that's a
really
seal of approval. But I think that's the way you do it. But I think you need regular bait. And we have lunchtime meetings, and we just sit down. And we're fortunate enough to be able to, there's a dining room, so we sit down away from everyone and just bring your lunch. And just ask, how are you going? What are you doing? What's the best thing that happened? Why do you think this might be occurring? And also to the other people going, oh, I saw that, and let them be engaged with it too. So the solution's not coming from you. The solution is, in a sense, coming from, this is what I would do. And you go, oh, this is perfect. So you become a facilitator.
Yeah, cool. So that's that in that coaching kind of frame. So like what I heard you say was that you would co-opt. I really like the idea of presenting an opportunity to the staff. And Denise has just said, what about the more experienced teachers, towards the end of their career? How are we engaging them in this coaching and mentoring sort of opportunity? And Len, what you just said about co-opting, bringing people on board by asking, would you like to be involved in? And if you would like to be involved in, then come on, let's train. So it's the first thing I really liked. And then the second thing that you said I really liked was, it doesn't always have to be a formal meeting. I mean, an email, formal, 15 minutes. And I know that formal meetings and timing really help, because we only have so many hours in a day, but having lunch together takes away the formal part and allows you to create that safe environment. So like you said, sitting down in the dining room for you, for us, it might be out under a tree, at the tables or whatever. But that informal environment where you can have that conversation. The other part,
Amy. So that's really important, because when I meet with my pre-service teachers, the first few minutes are all about what did you do on the weekend, and and then we move more into what have you found a challenge so far, how you're getting on, and so on. And it creates that safer environment.
Yeah, and it's all really like back to that focus of learning. We're all learning. We will continue to learn, and that's why it's such an incredible profession. We learn every day. And we are shaping who we are. We're curating our craft every day, every time we have a conversation. So it's really, really powerful to have those. So co-opting, psychologically safe environment. And the other part, or the other piece of, having a planned program, I think for mentoring, I think that's kind of important, to be talking to the teachers who have put their hand up to be mentors, and hopefully our really experienced staff are doing that. For them to have, I suppose, a little bit of formal training in that space, so that, they're not forgetting the journey of their mastery. We're at the end of our craft and we know so much. Being able to unpack that is a bit of a skill in itself.
Yes.
And so I think being aware of how we're unpacking that skill is really important as part of that kind of mentoring program.
Amy, you talked about a little earlier about people coming from different schools and different systems.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big issue because I think sometimes teachers just think, well, if I go to this school, it's going to be basically what I've done before. And it's important that they realise that every school, even within a system, is different. You know, even within the department, all the schools are different. So I think a really good thing for mentors to do would be to just unpack from the teacher where they've come from and what it was like, and then to say, well, here we might do this in a different way. This is what happens here. So we're not criticising where they've come from, but just giving them a framework to work and go, oh, okay, so I've got to make some adjustments here.
You know, and I think that's a really good point. I think it's like it's almost like a situational analysis of where they are. You know,
Yes.
what's the current, where's their current state and where's the current head? I mean, I'll give you an example. This young teacher that came to us who's left, she came from a very small school, and all of a sudden she's come into a school where we've got, you know, some 220 people doing commerce, and she went, oh, wow.
Yes.
And then you went, now this is what you need to do. You know, you need to do this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and you can just see her eyes roll back in her head, going, "Yeah, right. I mean, this has been a terrific way to go. I'm glad I took this job on." But it's those sorts of things, and I think, you know, Rick, you're absolutely right, and you too, Amy. It's getting to know these people and saying, okay, so what do you expect? What did you think when you came to this school? What did you expect? You know, a lot of people, you know, and it's coming into a school and going, oh, look, you know, I'm coming into X or Y or whatever. And you go, well, you were attracted to this place. What did you think? What do you think what do you think it looks like to you? And then going, you know, otherwise what happens is that they come in and they get, you know, they're completely, I mean, schools are machines.
Yeah.
You know, schools are machines. You jump on. You know, I call it the bus. You get on about the 28th of January and you get off about the, you know, the 10th of December.
28th of February.
You know, I've just been smashed by the conductor and all those sorts of things. It's that sort of thing, isn't it? You know, you go, well, this will be cool. And then people go, oh, but I need a holiday. And you go, listen, champ, you won't have a holiday until about the 10th of December.
I know.
And you know, it's more than just looking at. It's more than people coming into a school looking at the ethos of the school. You can get that off the website. You know, you can read that, but it's understanding the nuances of that ethos. That's really
important. Takes time. Yes,
and it takes a lot of time, and that's where mentoring is really important. Just unpack those nuances gently and quietly, and so
yeah.
But you know, I think that's one of the problems in the schools itself. I mean, you know, people are criticising universities for this and that, but you know, we're comparing apples and oranges. To me, I mean, what university is and does and whatever, you know, and criticism has been levelled at, you know, well, they don't do this and they don't do that and whatever. And you go, that may be true, but that's not their job. Right. The problem is that when you get out into the school and you go, you know, you walk into the school and then all of a sudden, you know, you're at big schools or small schools and kids are running past you and it looks like, you know, Pittsburgh to peak out, you know, and you go, geez, I need traffic lights here or something to get past, you know, and people go, I didn't expect that. You go, what did you expect?
Yeah, that's right.
So what did you think you were little Lloyd Fauntleroy? Oh no, coming back here going, tipping hat, good morning. And guess what, baby? It's not like that at all, you know.
Yeah. Hey, Len, I saw a question up here, which I think is a really good one to try and get into. This one is, how do you make your constructive criticisms heard and appreciated better?
That's a great question.
Great question.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad you threw that one in.
We've got time.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. One of the issues about, I think it also comes back to having the background of trust. You know, I think you're working into that, and you're saying, this is, I'm not criticising you as a person. I'm criticising you. If I'm criticising you, I change that. I call it, it's a discussion. It's not a criticism. right? I know it can be veiled as a criticism or whatever it might be, the conversation, but the way I do it is saying, well, look, this in it, I saw one a couple of weeks ago, and I'll give that as an example, and it was an English lesson, and it was about poetry, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, and there were a few issues that occurred or whatever, and at the end of the lesson I said to him again, why did you do that, and what were you trying to do, and didn't you understand that no one in the school, no one in the classroom, I should say, had any agency at all, and you talked for 50 minutes? And they went, and I went, yeah, why is that? I said, and they went, oh, well, this is because of this and this and this. And I go, but I said, and this is a criticism. I said, I don't understand why you're doing this. What were the outcomes? And I think once you start to distill it down about why, but it comes back to, I mean, he didn't like what I said, but then I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you take a day? Why don't you take a day, and I'm going to come back the next day, and then we'll chat about this. So you take the heat out, right? You take the heat out, and then you turn around and go, oh, this is what, this is not, and I always preface this is not a criticism of you as a person. This is looking at the way you are a teacher, right? I'm not dealing with the core issues. I'm dealing with you in a way that I want to make sure that you understand where we're heading. And I've had those things, and I've been actually, then this person had a go at me and said, well, you don't know much about English. And I said, yeah, that's probably true. But on the other side of it, I do know how to teach. And they didn't like that. And I said, this is what I need you to do. It's really interesting, like you've both been in schools a long time. What does good teaching look like? That's a really good question. And what does it look like in your schools that like where you are, Amy, and Rick, where you've been, and you would say to someone, so what does good teaching look like at this school? What does that look like? And a lot of people never address that issue. And that's one of the issues that is almost a prerequisite to then having a discussion about an issue about criticism. Because remember we talked about what this looked like. Why is it that this is not happening? It's a really good point about what I mean, at our place, for example, we're wrestling with what does good teaching look like. And the maths people will go, this is this, the science people will go this, and you go, but is there not a common thread here? Is there not a common thread here? And to deal with criticism that's when you turn around and go, this is the background, and this is where you are. What I need to, so the criticism is coming about because of this, and this is my view, and then you can say something. So in a conversation, there's if you like, there's an equality.
Len, like the question that Amy had found there about being heard better comes back to what we said a lot earlier, and that is who is the school choosing or letting be mentors and coaches? Because the skills you require are very, very wide, and if you've got people that mentees that don't like criticism, that's a skill you've got to have, and in dealing with that, because I think we've probably bred a lot of people today who don't like to be criticised. Am I right?
Yeah.
And so that requires quite a skill from the mentor, and so it goes back to who are we choosing? Who are we letting be mentors? Because if you choose the wrong person, they're just going to get the other person's back up straight away, and they're not going to listen to you.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the issues that comes about when you're choosing a mentor or a coach. Not everyone, and we found that here. We had a coaching. I did a lot of coaching new people and whatever. And to be perfectly honest, people went, "Oh, I want to be a coach," and they were terrible at it. They actually caused more dramas. you know, and also to, you know, to be, and I won't be too honest with it, but there's CV accumulators. You know, oh, I'm a coach. Oh, this is what I've done, and you go, well, and basically it's wafer thin coaching, and that's where someone as a senior coach should look at these people and interview these people about who they want to be as a mentor and a coach. And in your Amy, in your position, that's what I would be doing, because if everyone rushes, oh, I want to be a coach. And then you say, well, then it's a long-term thing, not a short-term thing. Sometimes you get the people who just fall by the wayside. And that's really, that's what you want.
And I like Denise's comment. My experienced teachers will use their parenting skills, and that sets up confrontation.
Yeah, that goes really well. Yeah.
It's a bit like tutoring, which I do a little bit of, you know, occasionally get someone where the parents are trying to go, why am I failing? And they go, well, because you're the parent. You need someone from outside to come in and help. And that's an important quality for mentoring.
Well, I'm not going there, but all right. But overall, it's been, you know, I think for me, we need to, as a profession, we need this coaching occurring, and honestly, not just early career teaching. I think there is coaching that can be used, and people who are benefited for, you know, 10, 20, 30 years of teaching. What you do want is a development of them. What you don't want is, you know, Monday's washing day, Tuesday's roast beef, Wednesday. That's all I've ever done.
Yes.
That's not what development's about.
Yeah.
You know, but anyhow, all good.
So Amy, have you survived the alarm that's been going off there?
I have a fire alarm that's going off.
It's still going off.
I don't know if you can hear it, but yeah, I need to move in a minute. But I think this conversation's been really, really helpful, because talking about context, familiarization with coaching skills and mentoring skills, thinking about how they're landing in different types of schools is really important, but also remembering that they're really, really vital in conversations between colleagues, but also can be really powerful in the culture, in the learning culture of the school, with a focus on how do we improve student learning. I
think one of the other things also is that we can benefit from inter-school.
Yes.
I think that's a really big issue that, you know, and that's a safe thing where you can talk to different people. And I think it's a really great idea to do that. But yeah, but overall, no, I've enjoyed the conversation, and people, you know, highly respected people in the community, and I certainly do value what was said tonight. Was terrific.
Thanks, Lee.
Patrick, you were there. Hello, darling.
Yeah, so I'm there. Well, in conclusion, we've had to reach the end of our discussion, and I know we could keep going for even longer than what we need to this evening. But first of all, on behalf of the Teachers Guild of New South Wales Council, I would like to extend our gratitude to our distinguished panelists today, Amy, Rick, and Len, yourself, for moderating this wonderful, rich discussion. We really appreciate your valuable time and dedication in facilitating this informative discussion on the opportunities and the challenges surrounding our topic today. The Teachers Guild of New South Wales acknowledges your contributions and commends your efforts in enhancing education, fostering professional development, and cultivating a vibrant professional association. So thank you. In terms of follow-up, a recording of this event will be shared along with a certificate of attendance and a short post survey, which really helps us to help shape our future online webinars that we do run. I would like to thank you once again for being part of this event, and we look forward to your participation in future Guild events. Please stay safe and well, and hopefully we get to see lots of you, for those of you that have registered for our event next week, Tuesday at Concord Golf Course. Have a safe night. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Ciao. Have a good night.